Okay, so sorry about that. Looks like my camera cut out again. Anyways, so for the domain of this function, we can just think about this as squishing this function against the x-axis. If we did that, it would occupy all of this part of the x-axis. So if we can just imagine squishing all the points of the function against the x-axis, it would occupy from -8 to 0, including -8 and 0. And so our domain is that -8 to 0. And the range is done pretty similarly. We can imagine squishing our function against the y-axis, and if we did that, all of our points would squish against these points over here from -2 to +1. And so from -2 to +1, this would be our range. Next, we want to find g of -2. Well, since this is our graph of g, -2, so g of -2 just means where x is equal to -2, where's the y value for g, and that would be at +1. The other way that you can do this is algebraically. So if we look at this for a second, g of -2 would be equal to -f of -2 plus 3 plus 2. If we simplify that, we get -f of 1 plus 2, and f of 1, if we look at our original function, untransformed, f of +1 is also +1. So this is going to be -1 plus 2, and look at that, -1 plus 2 is also equal to 1. So regardless of how you do this, if you do this using the transformed function or if you do this using the algebraic approach, either way you're going to get +1 out of this. So for part E, we want to find the zeros of g of x. The zeros are just going to be where our function touches the x-axis. So that's going to be at -8, -4, and 0. So we have x is equal to -8, x is equal to -4, and x is equal to 0. And lastly, the y-intercept of g is going to be where our function touches the y-axis. And so y-axis right here, our function touches right here at the origin. So the y-intercept would be at y is equal to 0, or if you would like to write a point, you would say that this is 0, comma 0. And so that's all of our parts for number 17. Now let's look at our favorite section of any of these assignments, the test prep. So for number 18, which of the following is the transformed graph of y equals f of x plus 2 minus 1? So we just want to identify what our transformations are of this graph. So this plus 2 is going to tell us that we moved left 2, and then -1 is down 1. So if we look at any one of the points, because these are just translations, left 2 and down 1, 1, 2, down 1. So if I'm looking at this point right here, left 2, down 1, and just by doing a single point, I know that this point has to start at the point -5, 1. And just looking at our answer choices, this is not -5, 1. This is not -5, 1. Not C either, but D is -5, 1. So we can already eliminate A through C just by translating a single point using these transformations. And that works for any single point. Because if we look at this bottom point right here, if we go left 2, down 1, we know that this point right here at the very bottom has to be at -3, 1. So, sorry, at 1, -3. Sorry, I switched to the xy coordinates. But at 1 comma negative 3. So if we look at any of these, or this little like trough here, the only one that lines up with is, again, answer choice D. So you can do this to any point, but that's how we get D for number 18. For number 19, the functions f and g are defined for all real numbers such that g of x is equal to negative f of x plus 5. Which of the following sequences of transformation maps the graph of f to the graph of g in the same xy plane? So what we want to note is that, again, it says sequences of transformations. That's very important. So for the sequences of transformation, remember we do this from left to right. So the first transformation we have is that we have a vertical reflection. So A is already out, B is out. That already leaves us with just C and D. And then plus 5, remember, is going to be moving our function up 5. So not a horizontal translation, a vertical translation of the graph by 5 units. So that's why our answer choice is D. And for number 20, function f is given by f of x equal to negative x squared plus 3x plus 2. Let's see. Okay, so keywords here. After a vertical translation, of the graph of f by 4 units. So a vertical translation, now notice they're not indicating a direction. That's because it's implied if it's by a vertical translation of f by 4 units, that this is up 4 units. Because if it said graph of f, translation of the graph of f by negative 4 units, by negative 4 units would be down 4 units. So you have to pay attention to the sign here. However, we're going to take this function, and if we're translating it up 4 units, then we just need to add 4 to this entire function, because remember, that means that we have f of x plus 4. So if we take all of this and we add 4 to it, that's just going to make negative x squared plus 3x plus 6. So which of these functions matches that? That would be answer choice C. And so that is all of our questions for 1.12a. And yeah, so thank you for watching.